Peace. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Ariel ABT, the YouTube channel where we bring you biblical information, biblical classes to help spread the truth of Christ, to help spread the truth of God. We are here to give a lesson today entitled Truth Over Tradition, Volume 1. Hanukkah or Christmas? Which one should Christians celebrate? And we decided to do this class today because we feel like there's a lack of information in the world. We feel like there's a lot of people who are misled and misguided because they don't have the information, they don't have the research. So we came together today to bring you guys what we believe is the truth, which we can prove from history, which we can prove from the Bible, right? Without our own opinion, without speculation, and without belief, right? This is, shout out to Brother Josh for that. our teacher at Absolute Bible Truth. My name is Ariel, which is a Hebrew word for Lion of God. And this is my brother,
Zephaniah.
And today he's going to be reading for me. I just want to say thank you, brother, for coming today and reading for me. This is the first time on our channel where we had somebody read. So this is going to be, a historical day. All right. So as we get into the class, whatever information or input you have, feel free to share it with the people, So again, this is Brother Zephaniah. We are both Absolute Bible Truth members, and we're about to bring you guys a good class today with some good information. All right, ready?
Let's get into it.
All right, let's do this. So, like I said, Hanukkah or Christmas, which one should we celebrate? As believers, we want to know the truth, right? Because the truth shall set you free, as Christ said. And we don't want to be liars, because if you're not telling the truth, then you're lying. So we want to make sure that we're giving you guys good information so that you guys can make an informed decision instead of having loosely filled opinions, right? I'm reading this book. It's titled Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And it talks about having loosely formed opinions. And it's one way to drift away from the truth because you're just expressing things you have no knowledge on. So we want to bring you guys the research and the information that we have formed, over the years so that we can help educate some of our brothers and sisters in Christ so that they can have the information and they can be equipped to handle all of those who oppose them and all of the people who try to take their faith away, right? We want to make sure our faith is substantiated in our Bible because we believe the Bible is the 100% absolute truth of the Creator. So without further ado, let's get into this, and we're going to start with Christmas, okay? We're going to start with the history of Christmas. And just give you a little bit of background on myself. I was a Sunday Christian growing up, meaning I went to church on Sundays, right? And I did the Easter thing, I did the Christmas thing, I did all of the holidays, the American traditions with no knowledge of doing them. I did them because it was tradition. It was my parents said, we're doing it, so we did it. It's literally that simple. There was no Bible studies in my house. There was no historical information in my house. It was just, this is what everybody's doing, so we're going to do it as well. Which is okay, because I love my parents and I love how they raised me, and I appreciate all of them for their, experiences. But as I got older, I started to research and I started to question and I started to get more educated on the situation, on the topic of Christmas. Like, where did it come from and why do we do it? How do we do it? How were we supposed to do it? And all of these things. So I wanted to bring you guys the information that I've learned over time about Christmas. You got anything you want to say, bro, before we get into it?
Yeah, we pretty much all started the same way. I started the same way as you. I was a Baptist church-going person myself for many years, and I was always been a studier of the word, but never did proper research. So just like yourself, years and years went by, and then after a while, I noticed that, hey, it's something more to than just, doing this listening to someone without having more solid information. So what led me down that path, obviously the same thing led you down that path, doing Christmas and doing tradition, and you notice in certain things in the Bible where tradition is not looked upon well in certain aspects, especially Roman tradition. So that's what caused me to look a little bit further into this. So, but yeah, that's my background a little bit.
Awesome, and we just wanted to let everybody know this is not an attack on anyone's belief. No. We are not here to personally offend you or destroy your worldview. We know that when we bring new information, sometimes it may seem as though it's an attack on your character or attack on your personal, personality or whatever, but that's not the case. We're just here to bring you information according to history and according to the Bible, because we are Christian believers and we want to help educate other Christian believers on the truth behind their traditions. So without further ado, we're going to get into Christmas, right? What is the truth behind Christmas? And the truth behind Christmas is the fact that it is an ancient festival, the Saturnalia festival, in the celebration of the winter solstice, right? These celebrations were going on long before Christ. And these celebrations were taking place with tons of activities and illustrations from the pagan worshipers who practiced these customs. These were pagan people. These were not God's people. These were not people who subscribed to the Bible and the commandments. And Jesus Christ wasn't even around at this time. So Christians weren't even here yet. So these practices have been going on for centuries, thousands of years before Christ even lived and walked this earth. So one of the festivals was Saturnalia. And in Saturnalia, it was a winter festival in December. It was like a week-long festival, sometimes 2 weeks. And it was, basically a lot of mischief making. There was a ton of mischief making going on during Saturnalia. People were having orgies. They were sacrificing their children. They were drinking to the point where they was drunk and intoxicated and didn't know what was going on. So all of these immoral acts and things were going on. And we have a little bit of history to back this. So you can also research Saturnalia on your own in the winter solstice, as well as the Yule log festivals and celebrations as well. So Brother Kev, can you get some of the information that we got?
Absolutely. Here's one. Funk and Wagnall's Standard Dictionary in Folklore, Mythology, and Legend on page 974.
So this is an article we got offline, but it's from a book. So you can get this book if you don't believe the article, because some people, they have some beef with the things that they put on the internet. Like, oh, you can't believe everything you put on the internet.
No doubt.
So it's like, we bring you a book. Can you accept that, right? Like, we're going to bring you internet articles. We're going to bring you sources, credited sources, not just no average Joe in his basement, right? Because sometimes you can find some false information on the internet. But if you sift through it and you have your discernment, you can find the true information on the internet as well. So we found this source from Funk and Wagnall's Standard Dictionary of Folklore, Mythology, and Legend. So you can get that book as well. Go ahead.
All right. It says, the usual was suspended during the Saturnalia. No punishments were handed down by the courts. Schools were closed. War making ceased. The toga was replaced by an undergarment. Masquerading in change of dress between the sexes occurred. Gambling, especially dicing, was fully continence. Social distinctions not only were not observed, but often reversed, as in the instance of masters serving their servants.
All right, so it's telling you all of the moral things were ceased. So they stopped practicing morality and started practicing immorality. The masters were serving their slaves, and the slaves were the masters of their masters. So they was doing everything backwards during Saturnalia, during this festival. They was drunk. Men was wearing women's clothes. Women was wearing men's clothes. And just all types of debauchery and mischief was going on during this time. Go ahead.
Speech and actions, as in many fertility ceremonies, were to some extent unbridled. A little bit further here, and the Greek historian, writer, poet, and historian Lucian, in his dialogue entitled Saturnalia.
So this is Lucian in his dialogue on Saturnalia, the festival, which we're giving you the history on, which was going on during that time. So you can research Lucian and his dialogue on Saturnalia as you research Saturnalia as well. You can find a lot of information in the Encyclopedia Britannica on Saturnalia, and there's tons of other sources proving Saturnalia and all of the things that the pagans did. This stuff is not hidden information. This stuff is on the internet. at your disposal. You can use the internet for your good, or you can use it for your detriment. So we're trying to use it for our good instead of our detriment. Go ahead.
That's correct. Describes the festival's observance in his time. In addition to human sacrifice, he mentions these customs' widespread intoxication, going from house to house while singing naked, a precursor of modern caroling.
So the precursor to modern caroling, because now in America they go around singing door to door, right? They used to do it a lot. It's not as much done now, but it still is done till this day. But the precursor to caroling was this act of getting drunk and going naked to people's houses, knocking on their door and singing to them, basically bothering them. Because who wants a naked person knocking on their door singing drunk, right? If that happened today, you'd be like, yo, this is madness. This is crazy. This is ludicrous. Why is all this stuff happening? We would be like so thrown off. Go ahead.
Rape and other sexual license and consuming human-shaped biscuits.
Wow. So they was eating human flesh. They was practicing cannibalism during Saturnalia. Go ahead.
They celebrated what they thought was the sun's return by having orgies, human and animal sacrifices, and eating blood pudding.
Oh, man. So during Saturnalia, they was wilding out. It was going bananas. They was going bonkers up there. I don't know why they was doing these things, but they was doing these things in honor of their god, the Saturn god, which is short for Saturnalia, right? Which is, which came after. Saturnalia is the ending result of Nimrod, which is spoken of in the Bible, right? So it goes Nimrod, which is a mighty hunter. We're going to get into that. Then it goes Tammuz, which is the Babylonian god, which is like Nimrod reincarnated. And then it went to the Romans, right? So we got Nimrod, then Babylon, got Tammuz, and then from Babylon to Rome, they got Saturn. So Saturn goes back to Nimrod, right? So this is just a historical timeline of where they got these things from. So when you're celebrating Saturnalia, when you're celebrating Christmas today, which comes from Saturnalia, you're celebrating Saturn, which is Nimrod, which is a god, which is paganism, because you're not supposed to celebrate any other gods but the Most High. But people made these people gods, and they started celebrating them and worshiping them with these festivals and all of these ancient rituals that they was practicing. So now that we got that, we want to get into the Holman's Bible Dictionary. We're going to get into the Holman's Bible Dictionary on Christmas. This is the Holman Bible Dictionary. For all of those who want to get this, you can get this on Amazon. So we're going to get into what does the Holman's Bible Dictionary say about Christmas. And I'm going to read this one. So this is page 253 in the Holman's Bible Dictionary under Christmas. And it says, no evidence remains about the exact date of the birth of Christ. So a lot of people like to associate December 25th with which is the birth of Christ, which is not the birth of Christ. And the Holman's Bible Dictionary is telling you it's not the birth of Christ. The December 25th date was chosen as much for practical reasons as for theological ones. Throughout the Roman Empire, various festivals were held in conjunction with the winter solstice. The winter solstice is a time period to where the sun is up at its shortest amount of hours throughout the day. So the Romans, these pagans, thought that their sun was dying, the S-U-N, the literal sun, because they literally worship the sun. That's where you get your first day Sunday worship from as well, because they worship the sun on the first day of the week, which is Sunday, right? So the sun was, they thought the sun was dying, right? These people weren't as educated as we are today, of course, because we know that as time goes on, we learn more information. So at this point in time, they thought the sun was literally dying, so they were sad, right? That's the winter solstice, because after it died for that short amount of time, think about a week or two, it started being rising longer, which symbolizes like the death and resurrection of the literal sun. And we had the death and resurrection of the actual son, Jesus Christ. Right. So in Rome, the feast of the unconquerable sun celebrated the beginning of the return of the sun. When Christianity became the religion of the empire, the church either had to suppress the festivals or transform them. So there was a decision being made. They said we need to either suppress these wild, crazy rituals that they do in these celebrations that they had in honor of the sun, or transform them. And they decided to transform them. The winter solstice seemed an appropriate time to celebrate Christ's birth. Thus, the festival of the sun became a festival of the sun, the light of the world. I'm going to read that for you again because that might have went over your heads, right? It says, the winter solstice seemed an appropriate time to celebrate Christ's birth. So they just was like, yo, we sitting around this round table and they like, let's celebrate Christ's birth around the winter solstice. So they're like, this is the sun and this is the sun, so let's just put them together.
Right.
That's literally how it went. I'm telling you, like that's all. Like that's the only way I can imagine them putting Christ with the winter solstice.
No other way.
So, seemed appropriate times to celebrate Christ's birth. Thus, the festival of the sun, S-U-N, became a festival of the sun, S-O-N. You see how they infusing and mixing it together, right?
Yeah.
They're taking Christ and putting it on this wicked celebration in order to appease the Christians and the pagans. They're mixing two different people. They're mixing two different beliefs. They're mixing two different religions right here, right now, in your face. They're telling you this is what they did. So when you're practicing Christmas today, you're practicing a mix of two beliefs. You're practicing Christian beliefs and values with pagan Saturnalia beliefs and values. And we know that that celebration was beyond wicked, beyond immoral. And the Most High is not with that. So, the festival of the sun, the light of the world. So, that's what we got for Christmas from the Holman Bible's Dictionary. And we got Wagnall's, Funkin' Wagnall's mythology sources. That's 2 sources for you. And you can also go and do your own independent research as well. So, you got anything you want to say on Christmas before we move on?
You covered it well. You covered it well.
Right. So, your Christmas tradition comes from Saturnalia and the winter solstice. And the tree also comes from Saturnalia as well, because they took outside shrubbery and greenery and put it inside their houses and decorated it, right? In order to celebrate Saturn, their god Saturn, which is idolatry. We are not supposed to be practicing idolatry. We're only supposed to be worshiping the true and living God who you cannot see, right? But they practice worshiping men. They practice worshiping trees. They practice worshiping rocks. They practice worshiping everything. So Christmas is infused with paganism at its core, right? The mistletoe has pagan roots to it. Like there's like folklore behind mistletoe and how it was used as a sign to murder people and, you know, have sex under the mistletoe is like a fertility sign, right?
Yes.
And the Christmas tree and the balls that they even put on the Christmas tree. Like, who decides to put balls on a Christmas tree? On a tree outside? That's not normal practice. These things are ritualistic practices. You don't buy a new house and then decorate it with balls. The only time you decorate a tree with balls is on Christmas. And another mythology behind it is the balls came from a god who was wanting a human man, right? She wanted this human man, but he went to somebody else. So he married the king's daughter. So this man was wanted by this female god. So she looking down on this man like, oh, I want him to be my husband. But this man is like, I'm not about to be your husband. I'm going to marry this woman over here who I really love. So he married the king's daughter. So then the god drove this man mad, was playing tricks on his mind, right? So he went into the forest at a tree and castrated himself and put it on the tree. So you got decorating the tree with, man, I'm not trying to get too graphic, but
that's what it is. You
know what it is when you castrate yourself, the human parts, and that man put it on the tree. So it's just like the connection is there. Like, if you deny it after this, it's just like you willfully wanting to do wrong. Like, these things are connected in history and stories. And before they written any history down, it was all verbal. So all of these stories were passed down for a reason. It's not like we're just pulling this out of thin air. You can research this in many different books. Like, I have the articles here today. And this is from a source on the Independent. So you can research this article that they did on the Independent. And I'm about to give you the author in a minute. If I got that part. I probably didn't even print it off. But this is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, which I was telling you about earlier on Christmas. And the god's name was Sybil. Like the story, this is the story. Sybil desired Attis, as the gods often did, regardless of the mortal's wishes. But Attis had set his cap at the daughter of the local king. Rather displeased, Sybil sent Attis mad, and he ran in a crazy rage through the mountains, eventually, for reasons best known to himself, castrating himself at the foot of a pine tree.
And what pine tree?
And what Christmas tree do they put in their houses?
Pine tree.
Pine trees. It's crazy. Crazy. It's like, it's so much information. So much information. So, who is the author of this independent article? Do I have it? And I do not. But if you Google it, Attis and Sybil, it'll come up. Forgive me for not having the exact author, but I will put a link to this source in the video so you can check it out for yourselves.
You can also look up, anyone can Google the Christmas tree and its roots, and you can, I mean, this stuff is right at your disposal. This is not something that anybody can go in and look up the pagan roots of the Christmas tree. It'll come right up. You'll see everything there.
All right, so now we got into the secular history behind Christmas and how it's mixed with Saturnalia and the winter solstice and those ancient Roman festivals that the pagans were practicing. So now we're going to get into some biblical information as well. So we're going to go into Genesis chapter 10. We're going to talk about how we're going to make the connection between Nimrod and Saturnalia, basically. Nimrod and Saturn. Because over time, as you go back in time, the name changes. The God don't. Satan is still mixed into all of these different names.
Mixing evil with good.
Yep. So we're going to go to Genesis 10. Genesis 10. And when you get there, brother, can you read verse 6?
All right. Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10, verse 6. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan.
All right, skip to verse 8.
And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar.
So, in the land of Babylon, Shinar, this man named Nimrod, who came from Cush, who Cush came from Noah, right? So, Noah was the grandfather of Cush, and then Noah was the grandfather of Nimrod, I'm sorry. Noah was the father of Cush. So, Noah, Cush, Nimrod. And this man, Nimrod, was a mighty hunter, and he opposed the Lord, right? So Nimrod decided to, when he got his kingdom, he decided to build a tower. The tower was called Babel, to fight God. Like, this dude was so arrogant. He was so high-minded of himself. He thought he was just the best thing walking the earth, that he decided to oppose God because he wanted people to worship him instead of God. So Nimrod was like, I want people to worship me. I don't want people to worship God, so I'm going to go fight God. So he tried to build a tower up to God, and God brought that thing down to quickest. Let's go to Genesis 11. We're going to go to Genesis 11, and we're going to read verses 4 through 9.
All right. Genesis 11, verse 4. And they said, Go to, let us build a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand what others speak. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the whole earth, of all earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth.
So this is the backstory to Nimrod. Why? Because Nimrod is the originator of Saturn. Saturn goes to Tammuz, and Tammuz goes to Nimrod because the people worship Nimrod, and that's where you get your pagan idol worship of men. All right, so now we're going to get into the history of Nimrod, the secular history. We gave you the biblical history of Nimrod in your Bible, right? And now we're going to go to the secular history of Nimrod to give you more of a background on him. So we're going to go to Josephus. Show them the book real quick. Show them the book of Josephus. You can get this book off of Amazon. All right, this is a historical accredited source that scholars use in order to have information from the 1st century. Josephus recorded tons of information from the Jews while they were in Roman captivity.
That's correct. So we go to Josephus?
Yes.
Book 1. Book 1, chapter 4.
Oh yeah, Josephus, book 1, chapter 4, verse 2, paragraph 113 and 114. Again, that's Josephus 1.4.2, paragraph 113 through 114.
And it says, now it was Nimrod who excited them to such an affront and contempt of God. An affront is basically an outrageous remark to offend someone. So this guy's literally offending God. Unbelievable. He was the grandson of Ham, the son of Noah, a bold man, a bold man of great strength of hand. He persuaded them not to ascribe to God as if it was though his means they were happy, but to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness.
So he just read that Nimrod persuaded the people to believe that they are getting all of these things, like the food, the shelter, the warmth. They're getting all of these things from Nimrod, but they're really getting all of these things from God. But Nimrod is convincing, he's persuading them to think that Nimrod is doing it.
He also gradually changed the government into tyranny, seeing no other way of turning men from fear of God, but to bring them into the constant dependence upon his power. He also said he would be revenge of God if he should have a mind to drown the world again, for that he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach, and that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers.
Awesome. So, just a quick recap of Christmas, because we wanted to get into Christmas. We got to get into the truth, because we need the truth. We don't need tradition. All right? Keep your traditions. We need the truth. Now, if your tradition has truth in it, by all means, let's do it. But we got to get the truth no matter what. So Christmas, if you go into the history of Christmas, the Yule log, tree worship adopted by the Christians to appease the pagans. It's rooted in paganism. Over 4,000 years before Christ even walked the earth, these things was going on. We got, the Roman Bacchanalia or Saturnalia's son. And Saturn, that's where the West Indians, they talk about Bacchanal. Bacchanal is like party, crazy, like you doing mad, weird stuff, you acting out, right? That's Bacchanalia to the West Indians. But that's Saturnalia as well. So that's where the West Indians get their Bacchanal from and all that. And then we got, the winter solstice, the shortest and darkest day of the year, which they thought the sun, S-U-N, was dying. But the sun never dies, right? But, it is what it is. We got the harvest done for the celebration of the year. So around winter solstice, they've done all their harvesting, right? They planted all their seeds, they gathered all their crops to prepare for the dark, cold winters, because you can't grow food in the winter. So they was giving Saturnalia, harvest god, praise for giving them food, even though they're supposed to give praise to the Creator, the God of Jesus Christ, for giving them food. They created some harvest god to do that. So Saturnalia was a lawless, drunken time for immoral acts. And we all know the Most High God is the God of morality, not immorality. And Saturn, or Kronos, alias for Tammuz, was Nimrod reborn. So they was following this man Nimrod, who we just learned in Josephus. He died, and they thought he was reborn as Tammuz. They made him a god, a fake statue god, and tried to say that's his rebirth. The founder of Babylon, he was Nimrod, he was deified, right? Like you were human, and then he deified you as Saturn, right? So that's why we went into Saturnalia, to give you guys the history as to who they're really celebrating. So when you're celebrating Christmas, you're really celebrating Saturn, which is really celebrating Nimrod, the man who opposed God, your God. If you are a Christian and this is your belief, then you can't be associated with Nimrod because you serve the Creator. You don't serve Nimrod. Right. So now we're going to get into Deuteronomy 18. Deuteronomy 18 and 9. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 18 and 9. Because the Most High told us something to be very mindful of. Very mindful of. So we got to be mindful of this.
Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 9. When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations.
So God is telling us, when I bring you into this land, right? This was the Israelites back in that time. He was talking to the Israelites. We know that. They was going into the land of Canaan, right? So they was going into the land, and there was other nations of people celebrating things that they were not supposed to be doing. So God gave them a warning. He said, when you go into this land, don't do after the Canaanites. When you go into this land, don't do after the Babylonians. When you go into this land, don't do after the Romans. So we in America are not supposed to be doing after the customs and traditions of America, because America get their customs and traditions from Rome, which is European, which is paganism, which is other god worship, right? There's a timeline. You have to follow the timeline. You have to do the research in order to get the true information. So we're giving it to you right now. We're not supposed to do as the other nations. In Deuteronomy 18 and 9, it specifically says don't do after the nations, because they're doing abominations, which is those orgies, which is being drunk, which is practicing immorality, right? All of these things that the pagans was doing, we're not supposed to be doing it, right? And this is the crazy thing. So they took the pagan roots, put Christ's name on it, and they was like, yo, this is getting really out of hand. Because at one time, Christmas was outlawed. It's like, yo, y'all can't celebrate no more because y'all doing too much. Y'all killing people, y'all sacrificing babies, y'all bothering people. Everybody don't like y'all. So they're like, listen, y'all can't do that. We got to mix the Jews and the pagans. So now they're trying to appease both people. God's people is the Jews, not the white Jews in the land today. Not the white Jews you see in America. The Jews are people who are the Israelites. They were Jews, the Israelites. So the Israelites and the pagans is in the same land. And they're like, yo, we got to make everybody happy. So they said, okay, we're going to take the pagan, non-immoral things like the tree, the lights, the decorating, you know, all of that. We're going to take a couple things from Saturnalia, and we're going to put Christ on it to mix the sun, S-O-N, with the sun, S-U-N. Right. And that's where you get your Christmas tree. That's where you get the giving of presents. That's right. Where you get, you know, the decorations, all of that stuff from paganism. But they just put Christ's name on it to appease the Israelites, to appease the Jews, to appease the Christians who were following Christ at this time, right? And you're a Christian today. You're a Christian, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm a Christian. That Christmas was never for us. Christmas was a settlement to appease the pagans and the Jews. God never said conform. God never said settle. We're not supposed to conform to the ways of the land. We're supposed to be following the ways of God. God gave us holy days in the book of Leviticus that we should be practicing, but yet we're going to be practicing pagan days? When we can just put the pagan days down and practice God's days? I'm going to put the pagan days down and I'm going to follow God, because I don't want to be even associated with idolatry, right? You don't want to be associated with people who steal. You don't want to be associated with people who lie. You don't want to be associated with people who murder people, right? If you know who openly lies, who openly murders people, who openly steals, you'll be like, yo, I'm not going over there. I don't want to be seen with them. And that's exactly what we're choosing to do today. We're choosing not to be associated with paganism when we put down Christmas, right? So we got into Deuteronomy 18 and 9. Now let's get into Jeremiah 10. Jeremiah 10. We're just going to nail this Christmas thing in the ground one last time. Jeremiah 10, which probably most people are familiar with, but if you're not familiar with it, we're going to get into it right now. We're going to go to Jeremiah chapter 10. You can start with verse 1.
Okay.
Verse 1 through 5.
1 through 5. Jeremiah 10, verse 1. Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel.
Hear ye the word of the Lord, O house of Israel, which then Israelites turned into Christians. So modern day, this is talking to you. This is talking to me. Go ahead.
Thus said the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen.
Learn not the way of the heathen. And heathen is a name for other nations. It soon later became a name associated with derogatory and negative connotations.
Right,
got negative connotations around it for anybody who don't do what the Most High want. Go ahead.
And be not dismayed at the signs of heaven.
Be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. Because during the winter solstice, they were dismayed at the signs of heaven. They were sad. They were upset. They thought their God was dying. They were dismayed. They were looking up into the skies, and it was sad on earth. Go ahead.
For the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with an axe.
So tree worship has been going on since ancient Babylon.
Long time.
Long time.
Long time.
So you think, oh, this tradition is a Christian tradition. No. This tradition is a tradition of idol worship from other gods.
That's right.
Who can't do nothing. But we're going to get into that. Go ahead.
They deck it with silver and with gold.
They deck it with silver and with gold. Back in the day, this was real silver and real gold, but we know that most people who celebrate Christmas now can't afford real silver and gold. So they get the little tinsel from Party City.
Glitter,
glitter and all that, the balls, Marshalls, Walmart, the stuff that they can afford, the fake stuff, right?
Don't cost much.
So you're imitating the practice of the heathens when you do that. You might not say verbally, oh, I'm a heathen. You might not say, oh, I'm a pagan. You might not say it verbally with your mouth, but you're saying it with your actions. And we know that actions speak louder than words.
Correct.
Actions speak louder than words. So you might not be saying it verbally, but when you decorate it in your house, when you put these things in your house, you're saying it with your actions. You're illustrating these pagan beliefs and idolatry views. Go ahead.
They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright as a palm tree, but speak not. They must be needs be born because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good.
So don't be afraid of the Christmas tree. We're not telling people you gotta be afraid of the Christmas tree. That's madness. We know that it can't move, it can't talk, it can't hurt us, right? That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is don't practice the customs, don't practice the traditions, don't take on the actions of the heathen, of other people who don't serve the true and living God. If it's closely associated, you really need to do the research and see if that's okay or not, right? Read the last one, verse 6.
For as much as there is none like unto thee, O Lord, thou art great, and thy name is great in might.
So Jeremiah is saying, these idols is nothing. You are great in might, God. So we're going to serve you, right? Now, we're going to go to Isaiah. Let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 40. Chapter 40.
Before we go there, though, that particular chapter is labeled in my Bible, idols and the true God. So if anybody says, well, it says it doesn't do evil. Because people will take that and be like, well, it is, he don't do evil.
Right.
Just try to keep that tree.
Right.
What Jeremiah is expounding on is the fact that tree is a symbol of idolatry.
Facts.
So we just want to make sure that that's clear, that we get, even though Jeremiah says, well, it doesn't do evil, believe me, it's idol.
Right. An idol is evil. When it means evil, it means it can't hurt you. Like,
that's correct. Murder
is an evil act, right? The tree can't murder you.
Right.
Like lying is an evil act. The tree can't lie to you. That's what it means by, it can't do evil. But it is evil in the sense of its idolatry. We're not supposed to have idols in our house. We serve the true and living God who you cannot see, right? So you don't need no idol. You don't need to bow to it and give it no presents. You don't need to sing to it. You don't need to decorate it, right, and make it look good. We don't need none of that.
That's correct.
So we're going to go to Isaiah 40 and we're going to read verse 20. Let me get there real quick. I'm just throwing this in there because it's a funny verse to me. This is a funny verse. So I just want to put this out there for the people. Go ahead.
All right. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 20.
Start at 19.
Let's say 19, okay. Isaiah 40 and 19. The workman melted a graven image, and the goldsmith spread it over with gold, and cast silver in chains.
So more decorations. The workman is going hard, making these decorations to put on this idol, this tree, which is not even living. Go ahead.
He that is so impoverished that he hath no oblation to a tree that will not rot. He seeketh unto him a cunning workman to prepare a graven image that shall not be moved.
So these people were so impoverished that they're like, listen, we can't get no tree every year. We need a tree that will not rot. Why? Because they can use it every year. It won't rot.
Sounds familiar.
So the plastic trees you get, you got to throw them out too. Because this is saying they got plastic trees as well. In a sense, we know they wasn't really using plastic. They just was using a tree that lasted a long time. So they can use it year after year. I remember growing up, we had a plastic tree. So every year I would go downstairs in the basement, get the big box, bring it upstairs, take the plastic tree out the box, pop it up like an umbrella. All the leaves, the branches and stuff would rise up. Then we would decorate the tree. So if you people who are so impoverished, and today there's people who are impoverished today who celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, yo, this is an economical route. This is going to save us some money. We don't got to get a real pine tree.
Right.
Because the real pine tree will go bad. But if we get this plastic tree, we can use this for 20 years, 50 years, right? So I just found this verse super interesting because it's so true, it's so relatable. This is another testament to the Most High to make sure that this Bible is one of the realest books ever. This is the realest book ever made. Like everything you ever need is in this book.
Old Testament.
Like Old Testament, New Testament. And that's right in your Old Testament. It tells you a tree that will not rot. But we're not going to spend too much time on that.
No. but we all were there. For anybody who's looking on, we've been there. I've been there. I've done Christmas. He's been there. He's just expounding. We thought this was funny because we said a plastic tree. We both know we both were poor at some point.
Yes.
We both have plastic trees. So
yes.
We just thought it was something to throw out there. And again, Jeremiah 10, Old Testament. Isaiah. This is all Old Testament. It's not even in the New Testament. So it's been... This practice of tree has been rolling for years, way before Christ's birth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it's just more historical proof, man. If you're a Bible believer, if you're a Christian, you got to do your historical research. So let's go to Isaiah 5 and 20 now. Let's go to Isaiah 5 and 20.
5 and 20.
When you get there, please read.
Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20. Woe to them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter.
So what this is saying is, woe unto those who call evil good and good evil. So we're trying to tell you, we're trying to inform you, we're trying to warn you because we love you. We're trying to spread information, true information to help bring you out of darkness. So we're telling you that you're calling good evil. You're calling evil good. The Christmas tree is evil, and you're calling it good. The Christmas tree is an idol. Idols are bad. Idols are evil. Idols are against God, and you're calling it good. Woe unto them, and woe means destruction. Destruction unto them who call good evil and evil good. We're teaching you that this Christmas tree is evil. We're giving you historical evidence. We're giving you biblical evidence. We are giving you our own experiences as a testimony to the fact that we were there with you. We one time celebrated Christmas. We did all of these things. But right now, the Most High commands every man to repent. So you have the option to repent. This is on you at the end of this day. At the end of the day, it's on you to change, man. And I know it's a tough change. I know it's hard. Because these are traditions that we love. We've been doing it for so long. It's hard to break away from it. It becomes a part of our worldview. It becomes like intrinsic. It becomes like internal. Like we get such a deep and passionate connection with Christmas that it's hard to break those chains. It's hard to break those bounds. But true servants of God will break those chains and will break those bounds. And you have brothers and sisters in this world, like Brother Zephaniah and myself and all of the brothers at ADT and abroad who already know the truth behind Christmas. There's people out there to help you comfort you and help you get through this tough time, which is going to be tough to probably break through at first, but over time you'll be so thankful and you'll be so glad that you did it and you'll be so blessed for it. So now we're going to get into, let's go to, you know what, we're going to end it right there with Christmas, right? If you're a true Christian, you shouldn't have nothing to do with Christmas. Now we're going to get into Hanukkah. All right, we're going to get into Hanukkah and should Christians celebrate Hanukkah? We did should Christians celebrate Christmas, and we found out we're not supposed to be celebrating Christmas. So now let's see if we should be celebrating Hanukkah. All right. So we're going to get into the biblical history of Hanukkah. Okay. And the history of Hanukkah is the 8-day celebration, which the Jews, which are Israelites, right? Because the Israelites have a tribe of Judah. So for short, the tribe of Judah are Jews. So if you're a Jew, you're an Israelite. And if you're an Israelite, you're a follower of God. The Israelites followed God because God chose the Israelites to give the commandments. Christ was an Israelite from the tribe of
Judah.
Christ was an Israelite from the tribe of Judah. So we follow Christ, the Lion of Judah, from the tribe of Judah, right? So he's an Israelite, and we follow Israelite practices and customs. And a lot of people would like to get thrown off because the Jews of today are white and they practice, different things, and they really don't know the history.
Right.
So they look at the Jews and they say, oh, you're doing something wrong by celebrating Hanukkah, right? But in actuality, the Jews are doing something right. Sunday Christians have a lot of things right as well.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
But here's the thing. Satan is a shrewd operator, ladies and gentlemen. Satan is very wise, very cunning, and very crafty. He's very intelligent. More intelligent than we. We got to remember, Satan was a leader of the Most High's army. He was an angel before he became opposite, before he became contrary, before he became an evil spirit, right? So what Satan did was, you got to have a little bit of cheese to trap the mouse.
Got to.
So he's going to mix in truths with a lot of lies. But he's going to give you that truth to suck you in, first and foremost. Because if he give you a little bit of truth, he'll know you believe it. It's hard to go away from it once you get sucked into it with years of tradition, with years of society, societal pressures and societal norms, and everybody who you know doing it. So you feel like, everybody's doing it, so I should do it. But if you don't, you'd be like an outcast, right? Which is hard to do. A lot of people don't like to stand out, but you got to do it if you're going to serve the Most High.
That's hard.
So when it comes to Hanukkah, it's an 8-day celebration, the Festival of Lights, right? So we're going to get into some biblical history on Hanukkah. And we're going to go to the Holman's Bible Dictionary again. Holman's Bible Dictionary, we're going to get into Hanukkah. Let's see what it has to say. We went to it and saw what it has to say on Christmas, right? Yeah. So let's go to it and see what it has to say on Hanukkah. This is a great resource for your Bible study tools. This is kind of like an advanced Bible study. We are, mature in our understanding. We've been doing this for like 5 years plus. I've been doing this for like 7 years. You've been doing it for like, what, 3, 4?
Actually, longer than that.
Longer than me, because you was with IOG.
Yeah.
Right.
About 10 years.
10 years, see? So this is, my bad, go ahead.
A little over 10, no, it's just a little over 10 years since I've been associated with what I consider a different style of worship. I'll put it that way.
Nice.
Since I stopped being a Baptist, I'll put it like that.
True, cool. So, we are both seasoned in this thing. This ain't no overnight, we just found this out yesterday study.
No.
We've been in this thing for 7 years. We got 7 years of experience. We got all these books in front of us. Like, we take this thing very serious. So you're not learning from no novices. You're not learning from somebody who is, a baby in this thing. Like, we may be babies compared to somebody who's been in for 40 years, right? But we put in 7 to 5 years. When you go to college, to get a bachelor's degree, take 4 years.
4 years.
So you study, you get a certificate, you get your degree, right? And now you're studied. Now you have, more education and more background on that specific area of study. So if it takes 4 years to get a bachelor's degree, and we've been doing this for 7 and 10, I'm pretty sure we are qualified in order to teach this word.
I think so.
Right? So some people, 8 years to get a PhD? So I have my PhD next year.
Yeah. You're almost there.
And you got your PhD already. You've been doing this for 10 years, 10 years of study, 10 years of research, 10 years of self-discipline. We're doing this because we love you. We're not doing this to make you feel bad. We're not doing this to hate on you. We're not doing this to shun you. We're not doing this to belittle you. We're not doing none of these things. We're doing this because we want to educate you, because we love you. We are true Christians in our belief and in our action, right? Our actions line up with our beliefs. It's one thing to call yourself a Christian, then it's another thing to act like a Christian. So we've been acting like Christians, and we've been believing like Christians, and we're not perfect. We're not better than you. We're not trying to be higher than you or anything like that. What we're saying is we are your brothers, and we love you, and we care about you, and we want the best for your future. We want to see you go to heaven. We're trying to go to heaven. So we're trying to bring you this information to help you make a better decision on your religious practices, on your sacred practices, on your holy days, right? We want you to pick up the holy days and put down the holidays. So we're going to get into Hanukkah. Holman's Bible Dictionary, page 604, and it says Hanukkah, an 8-day festival that commemorated the cleansing and rededication of the temple following the victories of Judas Maccabees in 167/165 BC, right? So we're giving you resources, man. I know a lot of your pastors probably not giving you all this deep information, but it's up to us to get this information. It's up to us to not follow a pastor just because he's a pastor. We have to follow the pastor who speaks truth. We have to follow the pastor who speaks in righteousness. We have to follow the pastor who is seasoned, who is studied, who is showing and acting on his beliefs as well. So there's a lot to it. So we're giving you guys the history of Hanukkah right now. We just went to the Holman's Bible Dictionary, page 604, under Hanukkah, 8-day celebration of Judas Maccabees and the rededication of the temple. So now we're going to get into Josephus. Let's get into some Josephus, just a little more history on Hanukkah, right? This is secular history now. What the Jews were doing with Hanukkah, the Israelites, God's people, the Christians of that time who believed on Christ, who followed Christ to their death. Okay? So we're going to go to Josephus, 12.7.6, Josephus Antiquities. Josephus Antiquities. Oh yeah, and here's another Josephus as well. His Josephus is blue, same author, William Winston, same book, just different like anecdotes and stuff like that. So, you know, if you change the cover of a book, you can charge more money. So keep that in mind.
That's what they do.
That's what they do. You know, we're going to give it to y'all 100% true. We not hiding nothing. We not adding nothing. We keeping it 100% real with y'all because we want people to keep it 100% real with us. We're not going to give you no misleading information. We're not going to give you no information you can't go find yourself. We're not going to tell you some lies. We're giving you true biblical and historical information. So Hanukkah, Josephus Antiquities, 12.7.6. And we're going to go to paragraph 319. If you're not there, it's some knowledge as well.
I got it.
Okay. Go ahead. Read paragraph 319.
So on the 5 and 20th day of the month of Caslu.
Caslu is the 9th month of the Israelite calendar, right? And then they're talking about the 5 and 20th day. 5 and 20? 25.
25th day.
So if Christmas is on December 25th, which is the 12th month of the year on the Gregorian calendar,
all right,
and the Hebrews had Hanukkah on the 9th and 25th day.
Interesting.
Y'all see the connection here? Y'all see the connection? 25 and 25, right? Christmas is a counterfeit Hanukkah. Christmas is a counterfeit Hanukkah. Okay? So what?
Which the Macedonians called Apelius. They lighted the lamps that were on the candlestick and offered incense upon the altar of incense, and laid the loaves upon the table of shewbread.
Incense, not incest.
Incense. I thought it was incense. Okay.
Yeah, incense.
My bad. Definitely not incense.
That's a fact.
And laid the loaves upon the table of the shewbread, and offered burnt offerings upon the new altar of burnt offering.
So the Macedonians, who were the Jews, they got back the temple, they rededicated it, and they lit the menorah for 8 days. 8-day celebration. All right, let's jump to paragraph 323.
Paragraph 323. Now Judah celebrated the festival of restoration of the sacrifices of the temple for 8 days, and omitted no sort of pleasures thereon, but he feasted them upon very rich and splendid sacrifices, and he honored God and delighted them by hymns and psalms.
Read 24.
Okay.
24, 25.
Okay. Nay, they were so very glad at the revival of their customs, when after a long time of intermission, they unexpectedly had regained the freedom of their worship.
So they fought back. They regained the freedom of their worship because at this time, they were being beaten and killed for celebrating God and doing what God wanted them to do. The Romans was literally killing them, chopping their heads off, martyring them, making them eat pig, making them go against all their customs for like 3 years. And then they finally gathered up the courage to fight back. And once they won and fought back, they dedicated the temple to the Most High for their victory. Go ahead.
That they made it a law for their posterity, that they should keep a festival on the account of the restoration of their temple worship for 8 days. And from that time to this, we celebrate this festival and call it lights.
So it's the festival of lights. So when you hear Hanukkah, you hear dedication, you hear festival of lights. Festival of Lights. All right, that's the secular history behind it. Now we're going to get into some biblical history behind it. And this is the King James Version 1611 Bible. And why this is important? The King James 1611 is important because it has the Bible, the 66 books, right? It has the 66 books. And it also has the other books in the Apocrypha. So these two books right here, the King James Apocrypha and the Bible in 1611 were all one book. These two books were this one book. And then the Catholic Church decided to rip the Apocrypha out. So they ripped the Apocrypha out, put it down, and now you just get these 66 books. But the Roman Catholics don't have a say on what God has put on this earth. So this book is also important as this book. There's a ton of history and a ton of information, a ton of principles and precepts and religious information on the Most High and the Israelites in this book. So this is a great book to have. This is the King James Apocrypha. Can you show them the Apocrypha as well? Oh, because we have two different Apocryphas, but this
is a red.
Yes, these are both Apocryphas. They read very, very, very similar. Very, very, very similar. It's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. And a lot of people like to get caught up. Oh, the Bible has many different translations. The Bible has many different translations. Well, it has so many translations because there's so many languages. Right. Like the Most High's word is for everybody. It's not just for one person. And as they dig and do archaeology and find more research and find more evidence, they have to bring it to the people. So when they find more evidence, they brought it to the people, and the Apocrypha was one of them, right? And this is why it's like this, and I'm going to give you another book as well. Because the Septuagint, the LXX, this is what they got the King James Version Bible from, this Septuagint, right? This is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Old Testament. So this was the Greek writings and the Hebrew writings. So this is the LXX, the 72. They brought together 72 scholars, just giving you a brief history real quick. They brought together 72 scholars to translate the Hebrew writings into Greek and Aramaic. And this is what they got, the Greek, right? So this Apocrypha is in here. So before the Roman Catholics got to it and tore it up, the Hebrews, the ones who followed Christ literally when he was walking the earth, were reading out of this book. So this book is valid. This book is historically accurate. This book is a must-have for any serious Christian, right? So this is the Septuagint, which are these two books combined. This is just English. This is the Greek. But this is also English as well.
Yeah, it's translated.
Yes.
In that book, it's translated.
Right. So I gave you that information so you guys can go and pick up the Apocrypha, man. Super good study tool. And go get you a 1611. It also has the Apocrypha in it.
But the Septuagint itself came way before.
Way before
1611. So.
Yeah. Way before the 1611. Way before. Yeah. So it's a great study tool to have. Great study tool. So we talked about the history of Hanukkah, the secular history. Now we're going into the biblical history. So let's go into the Old Testament. Now we're going into the Bible itself, right? The Bible itself. Let's do it. We're going to go to Numbers 7. Numbers 7. Let me get there real quick so I can follow along with you. Numbers 7. And when you get there, please read verse 1 and 2.
1 and 2. Numbers chapter 7, verse 1. And it came to pass on the day that Moses had fully set up the tabernacle and had anointed it and sanctified it, and all the instruments thereof, both the altar and all the vessels thereof, and had anointed them and sanctified them, that the princes of Israel, heads of the house of their fathers, who were the princes of the tribes, and were over them that were numbered, offered.
So we're giving you some context before we skip around. So we just want to let you know that Moses just sanctified the altar.
Yep.
And he put the princes in it from the tribes. So let's skip to verse 84.
Numbers chapter 7, verse 84. This was the dedication of the altar in the day when it was anointed by the princes of Israel. 12 chargers of silver, 12 silver bowls, 12 spoons of gold.
So as you can see, 84 says, This was the dedication of the altar. Hanukkah was the dedication of the altar. So, what most people don't understand is this word dedication is Hanukkah. So when you say dedication, you're saying Hanukkah. Ellie, go back in the room, please. Thank you. Sorry about that. But that's my lovely daughter, by the way, Eliana. So let's look up this word dedication and see what it means. So English is dedication, right?
Yeah.
So let's see what the Hebrew is.
It gets interesting.
We're going to go to the Strong's Bible Concordance, another great study tool for you guys to have. The Strong's Exhaustive Bible Concordance help you find the words from the Hebrew and the Greek, because the Old Testament is all Hebrew originally. The New Testament is all Greek originally before it was translated into English, right? So you have to know what the Greek words are and the Hebrew words are if you're going to understand what this is reading, because the English has different definitions than the Greeks and the Hebrews. So let's see what this word dedication is. And this is the word dedication in the book of Numbers, right? Which is, so we're going to get into the definition of the dedication, and that is the Hebrew 2598 in the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. And it reads Hanukkah, H2596, initiation, i.e. consecration, dedication. So whenever you see the word dedication, you can put Hanukkah.
Right.
So in Numbers, chapter 7, verse 84, when you see the word dedication, can you please put Hanukkah?
Will do. Number 784. This was the Hanukkah of the altar in the day when it was anointed by the princes of Israel. 12 changes of silver, 12 silver bowls, 12 spoons of gold.
Awesome. Now let's get down to verse 88.
All right. Numbers chapter 7, verse 88. And all the oxen for the same sacrifice of the peace offering were 24 bullocks, the rams 60, the he-goats 60, the lambs of the first year 60. This was the dedication of the altar. This was the Hanukkah of the altar.
Christmas.
Hanukkah. After that, it was anointed.
So that's not Christmas there.
That's definitely not Christmas.
That's definitely not Christmas.
Definitely.
That's Hanukkah, ladies and gentlemen. This was the Hanukkah of the altar. This was the dedication of the altar. So whenever you see dedication, you can put the word Hanukkah there, because that's what it means in the Hebrew.
Correct.
The Old Testament is all Hebrew. The New Testament is all Greek. So the Hebrew word for dedication in English, right? Our English word dedication is their Hanukkah, is their word for Hanukkah. So that was Numbers chapter 7.
Yep.
Also, if you want to read another example of dedication, you can go to 1 Kings 8, 63 to 66. King David dedicated, or Hanukkah, the altar as well. Now we're going to get into the Apocrypha. Right? So we are in the King James Bible, and this is the King James version of the Apocrypha. And these two books were at one time together, right? These two books were together. When were they together? They were together in the King James 1611, right? So the King James 1611 is these two books combined right here. But in 1611, they decided to take the Apocrypha away, right? So after they took the Apocrypha away, they gave us the 66 books. But we know that the Roman Catholic Church is not in charge of what books we read. We are in charge of finding out what books are inspired and what books line up with the Holy Word of God. And the Apocrypha is in the Ethiopian canon, which is the African canon, right? The Roman Catholics have their own canon, meaning they got some people together, the kings and rulers and religious leaders, and said, we're going to give the people these books. But in Ethiopia, they came together and they kept these books together. These two books are Also, in this one book, the Septuagint, the LXX, which is the 72 Greek scholars came together to translate. They were Hebrew and Greek scholars. They could speak Hebrew, read Hebrew, write Greek, speak Greek. So they came together and looked at the Old Testament in Hebrew, and they turned it into Greek. And then later we turned it into English, right? Because the Most High Word need to be in all languages so all people can know of his love and his grace, right? So this was before the 1611. This was in the first century when Christ walked the earth. They were walking around with Septuagints because they were Hebrew-speaking Greek people, right? Their nationality was Greek. That was the nation they were in. But their culture, their language, their race, their ethnicity was Hebrew, Israelite. Hebrew is a language, Israelite is the people. The Israelites spoke Hebrew, so the Hebrew-speaking Israelites needed this book so they can learn to read in Greek. So that's the history of the LXX. This is a great Bible study tool for you to get and put in your arsenal. Apocrypha, another great Bible study tool to put in your arsenal. King James 1611, another great study tool to put in your arsenal, right? This is an advanced Bible study because we want to tell y'all the truth. We don't want to mislead y'all. We don't want to tell you guys lies, right? We are trying our best to give you the best information to help you make an informed decision. We want you to be able to defend your faith and to understand why you're doing what you're doing. When you celebrate Christmas, you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing. You're just doing it out of tradition. You're just doing it because it's passed down. You're just doing it because society is doing it. You're following the crowd, right? You're not listening to two people who are novices, who are beginners. I got 7 years in it. He has 10 years in it. So we've been studied in this. We've got experience. We've been trying our best to gather the information to help people because we love helping people. We love serving people. We want to go to heaven. So we want you to go to heaven. And we want you to practice the things that will help get you into heaven. Practicing Christmas will not help you get into heaven, right? So now we're going to get into First Maccabees. First Maccabees. We're going to get into First Maccabees, and the first chapter of First Maccabees is a historical reference to what was going on with Antiochus Epiphanes and how he destroyed the temple and the Israelites. So we're not going to read the whole thing. We're going to read bits and pieces, okay? So let's go to, you can read the whole thing on your own time if you get your Apocrypha or your Septuagint or your 1611. But let's go to verse 7. Let's read verse 7 through 10.
First Maccabees, chapter 1.
Yes. First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 7 through 10.
Okay, First Maccabees chapter 7, verse 1, and it reads, And it happened after the Alexander son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius the king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned instead the first over Greece, and made many wars and won many strongholds.
That's First Maccabees or second? Verse 7.
First Maccabees. Oh, you went. Oh, skipping the first 7. I'm sorry. Got to skip. All right. So verse 7. I'm sorry. So Alexander reigned 12 years and died, and his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus surname Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in Hossus at Rome, and he had reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
All right, so we're gonna skip, and if you read verse 20 through 23, it talks about how they basically took over Jerusalem, right? So they took over Jerusalem. That's where the Israelites was at. These are these Roman Greeks, and they're destroying Jerusalem. So now we're going to go to verse 41 through 51.
Okay, verse 41, and it reads, Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws, and all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yet many also in the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath.
So Antiochus Epiphanes was so powerful that he scared the Israelites into joining his one rule, one religion, one nation. We're not supposed to conform. We're not supposed to give in to the ways of the heathen. But these Israelites did out of fear. Go ahead.
Okay. Verse 44. For the king has sent letters by messengers into Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid the burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
So now the Israelites are sacrificing swine's flesh and unclean beasts. A lot of people say, oh, I just eat pork. I don't eat pork. But that's not the only thing that's unclean. Catfish, shrimp, crab, rabbit, all these other things are unclean as well. So you got to be aware of what's going on so you can be informed and make a better decision. Go ahead.
Correct. Verse 48. That they should leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable and with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
Yep, profanation.
To the end they might forget the law and change all of the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people who were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for security. So the Israelites were being persecuted. If you don't follow our laws, Antiochus Epiphanes said, we're going to kill you. And they was killing them. And they got afraid. And they start running away. They found, refuge in woods and forests and caves just for a little bit of time, right? Let's see what happened after that. Now the 15th day of the month of Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abominations of desolations upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with the fire. And whatsoever was found with any of the burnt book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Thus did they by their authority into the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised.
So at this point, right, the women were standing up for the faith. The women were stronger than the men at this time. So fellas, make sure you get you a strong woman. But these women circumcised their sons because they killed the men and they kept the women for slaves and sex and all of these wicked things. And the woman was like, we have babies, we're going to circumcise our babies to keep covenant with God. So Antiochus, seeing that they was keeping covenant with God, and killed them. Go ahead.
And they that hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing.
So they were fully resolved and confirmed, meaning they were secure, they were bold, they were strong in their beliefs. Go ahead.
Wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant, so that they died. And there was a very great wrath upon Israel.
So there were some of us who were bold as lions, and they said, before you take us, before you do anything wrong, you're going to have to kill us. Because we're not eating your unclean animals, we're not following your wicked laws, and we're not conforming to your rule. All right, now we're going to go to 1 Maccabees chapter 4 and read verses 41 through 59.
41 through 59.
Let's see. We might chop that up real quick. First Maccabees chapter 4. Then, yeah, we're going to start with 41. 41, go ahead.
Okay. First Maccabees chapter 4, verse 41. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bare out the defiled stones into the unclean place. And when as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be reproached to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down, and laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until they should come and should come a prophet to show what should be done with them. Then they took the whole stones according to the law, and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple, and hollowed the courts. They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlesticks and the altar of burnt offerings and of incense and the table.
So the candlestick of burnt offerings, the candlestick is the menorah, by the way. Go ahead.
And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set up the loaves upon the table, and spread out the vials, and finished all the works which they had begun to make. Now on the 5th and 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month of Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that was it dedicated with songs, citherns, and harps, and cymbals.
So on the same day it was profaned and polluted by Antiochus Epiphanes, the 9th month of Caslu, on the 25th day, they said, we're going to use that same day, and we're going to change it, and we're going to dedicate it, and we're going to give offerings up to the Most High. So this was the Hanukkah right here. This was the dedication right here. Continue.
Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the God of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They decked all the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed, and hanged doors upon them. Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away.
So they cleaned the altar, dedicated it, sacrificed clean animals, gave gifts and blessings unto the Most High on the 9th month, 25th day. Go ahead.
Moreover, Judas and his brethren, with the whole congregation of Israel, ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 5th and 25th day, the 5th and 20th day of the month of Caslu, with mirth and gladness.
So as you can see in the book of Maccabees, you can go back and read the full story on your own in the Apocrypha, that they dedicated the altar for 8 days with mirth and gladness, right? So this is where we get our Hanukkah tradition. The Hanukkah tradition is a feast of dedication, is another name for it. They dedicated the temple after they won the battle, after they fought off Antiochus Epiphanes and his army. They rededicated the temple. So Hanukkah is really a remembrance of the fight of Antiochus Epiphanes and Judas Maccabees.
Correct.
So the Hanukkah tradition was celebrated from year to year. And the Most High was not mad at them for doing it, because he did not stop them anywhere in the process.
That's right.
He did not say, this is evil, don't do this for me. He did not say, this is wrong, this is pagan. He didn't say any of these things. He didn't say it was idolatry. He didn't say none of those things, because this was a historical event. You can go back in history and secular history books and read these events, okay? So when it comes to Hanukkah, it's a celebration of winning the war, of winning the fight, of preserving. The Most High giving us the energy, the wherewithal to be persistent in our battle. That's why we have Hanukkah, and remember our ancestors for the fight that they did against the wicked ruler. They stood their ground. Some people caved, some people folded, some people gave in. But then it was those who were strong, like Judas Maccabees and those priests and those women, who said, we're going to fight for what we believe in. We're going to fight for our rights. We're going to stand up against oppression, and we're going to take back what is ours. So when we do Hanukkah, we are remembering the war with Antiochus Epiphanes. Now, Hanukkah has nothing to do with giving gifts, right? Did we read anything about giving gifts?
No.
No. And Hanukkah, there was no gift giving except to the Most High. But we know as people, humans, we can give gifts any day of the year. 365 days a year, we can give a gift. So what they did was they said, let's incorporate gift giving on Hanukkah in order to give thanks to our children, right? Or your loved one or your spouse. So they gave gifts as an added tradition on top of remembering, because the whole Hanukkah is for remembering. So they remembered the war. So when you give gifts, it's okay to give gifts. You can give gifts any day of the year. So that's where the gift giving comes in with Hanukkah. Gift giving is not a Israelite tradition, but you can give a gift if you want, because it's not against God, right? The whole thing is not going against God. So Christmas giving gifts, there's nothing wrong with giving gifts on Christmas, because you can give gifts any day of the year. But the Christmas tree is a pagan idol, and it shows religious pagan worship. When you put gifts under the tree, you're showing the tree, you're sacrificing to it. When we give gifts, we're just giving it to our children. There's no tree involved. We know the Most High is our God, not the tree. So now we're going to go to John chapter 10, and we're going to end this thing with John chapter 10. All right? We go to John chapter 10, verse 22. When you get there, you can read John chapter 10, verse 22. Okay.
Let me know when you get there.
And I am here.
All right.
Thank you, brother.
It's all good. John chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of dedication, and it was winter. And Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch.
Now, this is for those GOCC members, those One West Doctrine Hebrews, those IUIC members, right? They believe that you're supposed to follow Enochian calendar or something like that.
Yeah.
And Christ didn't follow the Enochian calendar. Christ went on the calendar of the Jews of the first century, which was the Pharisees of the first century, because they were celebrating Hanukkah at that time. And Christ didn't say, hey, let's do it on Enoch's calendar. He didn't say, hey, you're doing it wrong. He didn't say, hey, you're supposed to be celebrating Hanukkah on another day. So Christ was using their calendar. And a lot of black Hebrews tried to take away doing it with the white Jews and do it on an Enochian calendar because they want to be self-righteous, or they want to feel like they got some information that nobody else got. When you're actually doing it in ignorance, because Christ did it when the Pharisees did it. Christ did it on their schedule. He didn't make a new schedule. It was the Feast of Dedication, which was the Feast of Hanukkah. So Christ did it when they did it. So therefore we should do it on that calendar, because that's the Most High's calendar. That's not, you know, the white Jews' calendar. And people like to be mad at the white Jews, and they think the white Jews are wrong all the time. The white Jews are not wrong all the time. Sunday Christians are not wrong all the time.
That's correct.
There's a little bit of truth sprinkled in both religions. Yeah. It's up to us to find what's true, take the truth, and leave the traditions out. It's up to us to find what's right and get rid of what's wrong. We have the ability to discern between what's right and wrong. We have the information, we have the research in order to find the answer to our questions, okay? So the decorations for Hanukkah is usually like blue and white. Those are like traditional Hebrew colors. Like the Most High told us to, you know, make your fringes in blue, and the Israelites decorated in so many different colors and everything. So that's where you get the blue and white colors from Hanukkah, which is not a biblical tradition. That's a tradition added later, which is nothing wrong with decorating your house, because you decorate your house now. So if you decorate your house on Hanukkah, there's nothing wrong with that. So therefore, it's okay to do, right? We don't decorate our house with Christmas trees and wreaths. We don't practice those idolatry things such as Christmas. That's the only thing wrong with Christmas. Not the decorations, not red, green, and gold. Who cares if you decorate your house with red, green, and gold? But when you put that tree in there, when you start singing those Christmas songs, when you start putting mistletoes up in your house, when you start, practicing those pagan customs, that's where you start to become in error. Okay? So they decorated in Deuteronomy 20 and 5. You can read that on your own time. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 5, they talk about how they decorated their house after they dedicated, after they Hanukkah, after they had a victory, a celebration of war. Because if you don't decorate it, somebody else can decorate it. So why not decorate your own house? When you win, you can celebrate. And that's what they did. They decorated and they celebrated. So in this class, we talked about Christmas. We talked about all of the pagan roots with Christmas, with Saturnalia and the winter solstice and the Yule log and the Vikings and all of the symbolism behind the tree, behind the mistletoe, behind the Christmas carolings, behind all of these things. We went into the Holman's Bible Dictionary. We went into the book of Josephus. We went into the Apocrypha. We went into the Strong's Concordance. We went to the Bible. We gave you so much information. We gave you so much understanding. We gave you so much truth. Why? Because truth reigns over tradition. Okay? And we want to follow the truth. We don't want to follow traditions. We want to pass on the truth to you because we love you and we care about you. And we want you to pass on the truth to others who you love and who you care about. And no, everybody's not going to receive this truth. This truth is not for everybody. But if you have a willing spirit, if you have a loving mind, if you have an open mind, the information in this class, hopefully it will give you a stable foundation as to why we don't celebrate Christmas and as to why we should celebrate Hanukkah as Christians, as believers in Christ, because Christ celebrated Hanukkah right here in John 10. He went into Solomon's porch on John 10 at the Feast of Dedication. He celebrated the Feast of Hanukkah. Dedication means Hanukkah. Christ did it, so we should do it. Did you find Christ celebrating Christmas anywhere in the scriptures?
Nowhere.
Did you find Christ celebrating Christmas anywhere in history?
Nowhere.
So you should ask yourself, and ask your pastor, ask your religious leader, ask whoever your spiritual guide or spiritual teacher is, why are people celebrating Christmas after this class? Take him this information and see what he said. And stand bold in this information because this is the truth of the matter. We gave you history and we gave you scripture. We came at it from all different kinds of angles. We talked about the tree. We talked about the origins of the tree. We talked about the origins of the mistletoe. We talked about the origin of the Christmas carols. We talked about the origin of the holiday and how they thought the sun, the literal S-U-N, was dying, right? And then they put the sun, S-O-N, on top of it to appease the Jews and the pagans. So, you got anything you want to add before we wrap it up, bro?
It was a great class. And again, for anyone who's looking, you got to remember, don't mix evil with good. It doesn't mix. It's oil and water. And that's what we kind of showed here is that Hanukkah is Hanukkah and Christmas is Christmas. It looks like Christmas imitated Hanukkah and not the other way around. So that's about all I got.
That's right. It looked like Christmas is a counterfeit Hanukkah celebration.
Looks like to me.
And you can find a lot more information, just a little bit more information you can do your own research on. You can go to the Smith's Bible Dictionary, the Easton Bible Dictionary, the Prophet Bible Dictionary, the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, and you can read more about Hanukkah, right? You can read the book of Maccabees for more stories. You can go to Exodus 25, 31 through 37, and read about the menorah for Hanukkah. You can also read in 2 Chronicles 7, they made a dedication. Ezra 6 and 13, they made a Ezra chapter 6, verse 13 through 18, they dedicated a Hanukkah. 2 Chronicles 7, verse 1 through 3, 8 through 9, they Hanukkah, they dedicated. So they dedicated the altar multiple times in the Old Testament. They dedicated the altar after the war in the book of Maccabees and the Apocrypha, and Christ also followed the tradition and celebrated it in the book of John, chapter 10, verse 22 through 23. All right, and let's get one more just to, let's get two more. Let's get two more because I forgot, right? We want to go to 2 Thessalonians 2 and 15. Can you get that for us? 2 Thessalonians 2 and 15. We're just going to nail this thing completely shut, giving you no room to wiggle your way out of this, for your family to wiggle their way out of this. Follow the truth. You don't have to follow your family. Because a lot of my family members ain't accept this truth. But I still got to follow regardless because I follow Christ, not man.
That's correct.
Go ahead. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 15.
Therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which ye have been taught, whether by word or epistle.
So Paul is writing a letter to the Thessalonians, the church at Thessalonica, and he's telling them, therefore, brethren, stand fast, stand strong, have a great foundation, have a good source of knowledge, have some boldness, stand fast, and hold the traditions which ye have been taught. Hold the traditions in which ye have been taught, meaning there's traditions in which you've been taught. And it wasn't Christmas, it wasn't Easter, it wasn't Valentine's Day, it was not Thanksgiving. Those traditions were not taught to us, or they was not taught to Paul. Paul is talking about the traditions in Leviticus 23, which is our holy days and our feast days and all of the things that the Israelites established, like Hanukkah. Whether by word or epistle. So if Paul taught your tradition by word, keep it. If Paul taught your tradition by letter, keep it. But he didn't teach Christmas by letter. He didn't teach Easter by letter. He didn't teach Thanksgiving by letter. He didn't teach Valentine's Day by letter. What is by letter is by written word, which was the commandments. Leviticus 23, the holy days, Passover, Feast of Trumpets. We got the Holy Fast, Yom Kippur. We got Hanukkah. There's a ton of traditions which we already have. God gave us traditions. We don't want to put down God's traditions and pick up man's traditions. Didn't Christ say that? I think in Matthew 7, he said, for well do you worship me, teaching the commandments and doctrines of men. You do your own traditions, but you don't keep God's traditions.
Right.
So we got to keep God's traditions. And the last one is 2 Timothy 2 and 15. We're getting out of here with 2 Timothy 2 and 15, y'all.
Timothy.
2 Timothy 2 and 15.
All right. 2 Timothy 2 and 15. Study to show thyself approved.
No. Listen to your pastor.
Study.
No. Listen to your mom.
Study.
Okay.
To show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed.
Wait a minute. So when you study, you won't be ashamed. So right. If you don't study, you will be
ashamed.
Dang. Let's get it.
Rightly dividing the word of truth.
No, wrongly dividing the word of truth.
Rightly.
Listening to my pastor divide the word of truth.
Rightly.
Rightly divide the word of truth. All right. So equip yourself with the tools and the knowledge that you need to be the best Christian that you can be, because we trying to be the best Christians that we can be. Again, this is not an attack on your beliefs. This is not trying to destroy your worldview. This is simply us sharing information with those who are Christians. If you're not Christian, then it's not for you. Thank you for watching, though. We appreciate it for sure. You can share this with your Christian friends and inform them and teach them. But if you're a Christian, you should really be putting down Christmas and picking up Hanukkah, so that you can follow the teachings of Christ and follow the teachings of the Israelites that came before us, and trying your best to be a good servant of the Most High. So, again, my name is Ariel, member of Absolute Bible Truth.
My name is Zephaniah,
member of Absolute Bible Truth. And we thank you for watching this video. We thank you for bearing with us over our great information. We truly appreciate it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Ariel Inspires, and on YouTube under Ariel ABT. And there will be links in the video to some of the articles we read from today, some of the sources we read from, and there's going to be a link to a class specifically dealing with the Christmas tree. Our lead teacher, Brother Joshua, leader of Absolute Bible Truth, did a great lesson on the Christmas tree and the traditions of Christmas, tackling it from a biblical perspective and a historical perspective. So that's a great class you should listen to. Take them notes. Also take these notes. And, oh yeah, there's another class he did too on Hanukkah, right? On the Blog Talk Radio. Yes. I'm going to put the link to that class in the description as well. We got tons of information on Hanukkah. We got tons of information on Christmas. We got tons of information on what's right and what's wrong, because we love you. We care about you. We want to help you. We want to give you the truth. We want to give you the right information. We don't want to mislead you. We don't want to misguide you. And we don't want to make money off you, because some of these pastors are just telling you the truth. Spend your time. Thank you for spending your time with us. Thank you for watching this video. We truly appreciate you allowing us into your lives and into your homes via YouTube. And hopefully you come back and listen to some more great lessons and information. It's your boy Ariel. Celebrate Hanukkah, baby. We're doing Hanukkah all 2019, going into 2020 and beyond. All right? You will never miss Christmas if you have Hanukkah. Your kids will never miss Christmas if you practice Hanukkah, because you can give gifts and you can decorate. And you got the significance with the menorah. Also, there's a Chanukia as well, which is 8 days, but this is more secular history, so we're not even going to get into that. But the menorah represents the Most High. This middle candle is the light of the Most High. So when you take the middle candle, you light the other candles for the days of the celebration. Why? Because the Most High's light never burns out. All right? Peace.
Shabbat shalom.